Hello, 'tis I, Fat Cow, slightly flush of face, because I've just gotten out of a very hot bath that was filled with Epsom salts to ease the weary bones of this particular middle-aged lady. It seems as if 2025 is not turning out to be the year for either of our girls. Not at all. There's many things I could comment on, but the majority of them will be covered definitely much better than I could by other reactors, and so I shall just go on my merry way and talk to the parts that are more personal to me. Foodie, in yesterday's live, day 2 of Ramadan, claims to not remember the vitriol and the, quite frankly, foul language that was brought forth from her particular cake hole during day 1 Ramadan's live. She doesn't remember what she said, and therefore I guess cannot be held accountable for it, because apparently it was said during some sort of fugue state that apparently, which is news to all of us, I think, was as a result of her ADHD, not the speaking crap and talking badly about people bit, but the inability to remember what was said. Well, guess what, Foodie? I too, or I do, I'm not comparing myself to you at all, but as somebody who has ADHD, I would like to say what utter codswallop. I have very rarely, if ever, forgotten what I've said, especially from the day before. In fact, when it comes to things that are said and things that I have heard, I actually have an uncanny ability to recall fucking everything. It's almost a superpower, my audio recall. I cannot remember a face, and I definitely do not remember people's names. But when it comes to things that have been said and people's voices, I remember everything. Anyway, that's by the by. Since when have you had ADHD, Foodie? I have, because of my ADHD, almost zero object permanence, and that applies to people as well as things, objects, tasks, appointments, things of that nature. I have 5 parcels I need to send out of various craft products, many of them pertaining to your likeness, let's say. And while I'm aware of this, I make notes of this, they are sitting literally there for me to do. I forget I've got to do them. I forget daily. I forget hourly. I can forget within 5 minutes of remembering I need to do something, that I need to do the something if I start doing something else. I forget very important dates, or I decide that, I have this really important thing I have to do on this date. And so I will look up the date on the calendar to see what day of the week it's on as well, because I like to, sort my life out according to when things are happening and on what day of the week it is. And let's just say, for example, this really important thing, when I look on the calendar, I have mistakenly decided that this particular day of the year lands on a Thursday. And so I will tell myself, okay, it's the third Thursday in March. So my brain will decide to remember this appointment as being the third Thursday in March instead of being, I don't know, the 25th or something. And so the time will come around and I will go to the appointment on the third Thursday in March, only to be told it was actually the third Wednesday in March and that the 25th was actually a Wednesday, not a Thursday. But my brain has decided it's categorically on a Thursday and fuck looking up anything else. I've done that for extremely important appointments. I will have a bill that has to be paid by so and so, and I will forget, because unless it's there in front of me, I will forget. And even if it's there in front of me, I've got to remember to look at it in order to do it as well. My memory is, in terms of doing stuff, shocking, but it's not shocking in terms of remembering stuff. It's the complete opposite, in fact, of my ability to do things I have to do. My ability to remember things that have been said or heard is at completely the different end of the spectrum. You have not conveniently forgotten what you said. And if your story develops to not only have you forgotten what you said, which is not in itself denying what you said, but a lead up, a prelude to then saying, I don't even know what was said. I didn't know I was saying it while I was saying it. I was in some sort of Breaking Bad fugue state. And the next thing we know, you're going to be stripping off all your clothes in front of the cheese deli at whatever supermarket it is you go to. Please don't. It didn't work for Walter White. It's not going to work for you. So, lying, you see where I went with that, is something that human beings do. Animals can't lie. They're incapable of lying. And us as human beings have decided that in terms of a moral compost, no, it's not a moral compost. Although a moral compost is actually quite applicable when it comes to a lot of people. But no, it's a moral compass. That, while I don't know if my inability to pronounce words and muck up words and stuff has anything to do with my ADD, I strongly suspect it has a lot to do with my dyslexia. But I think ADD might have a little bit of a influence. ADHD. I know, it's ADHD in terms of what my brain does and how it decides to express itself, let's say. I like moral compost though. I think it's quite applicable. Anyway, we have a moral compass, and we've decided that, as a rule, lies are a bad thing. Well, let's take the ethics out of lying and let's discuss why lying isn't an advantageous thing in general, particularly to people who allegedly, according to them, have memory issues, shall we? If if you tell the truth, if you make it a point to tell the truth, or if being truthful is just in your nature, you don't have to worry about what you say, because it's very easy to remember what you said, because if it's the truth, no creativity is needed to create what you say, because it's just a recounting of what happened. If you decide that you're going to be more fictitious in what you narrate, let's say, you have to remember what the lie was, which takes more memory than just recalling what actually happened. And therefore lying actually takes more effort, and remembering the lie takes more effort than just recounting what was happening. And then remembering what you said, and then when you retell the story, you have to remember what was said during that story, and then you just get this triple-decker, quadruple-decker sandwich of a story that you have to remember all the separate elements of. It's like playing that game, something Simon, that game that had the 4 lights, where it would play you a tune with 2 lights, and then you did the 2 lights back, and then it was 2 lights followed by 3 lights, and you did the 2 lights and 3 lights back, and then 4, and then 5, and then it got faster and faster, and you got more stress, and eventually you'd fuck up because you couldn't remember what came last, or if you could remember what came last, you've forgotten what came first or what was in the middle. Simon something. Anyway, your lie becomes like that. You have to remember everything that was said, and instead of just remembering one thing, which was the thing that happened, you are having to remember dozens of things, and eventually you will fuck up and get caught in your lie. Now, as somebody who is categorically, actually, let's speak to both Foodie and Amber, shall we? As 2 individuals that are categorically known historically for being somewhat on the lazier end of, whatever you want to call it, having to remember all these individual elements of your fiction, surely it is more in your nature as less than enthusiastically involved people in, activities, to stick to the truth, because it requires less effort and less mental input, shall we say. It's lazier, to be honest, is what I'm saying basically, if you want the abridged version of what I'm trying to say. And while I, in a very, very strange way, admire your tenacity and ability to stick to your fictitious narrative, or maybe it's just sheer bloody stubbornness, it does seem to be quite a bit of a faff and an effort. I myself am definitely an extremely stubborn and tenacious individual, but it's more of a case of not giving in to my chronic illnesses than trying to maintain a facade. I can't be bothered to pretend to be somebody else. I cannot be bothered to try and appear as something I am not. It has nothing to do with confidence and nothing to do with wanting to appear as something I'm not, or trying to fool people or deliberately pull the wool over people's eyes. I just like simple things, a simple life, and just being exactly who you are is quite easy, and it requires a lot less effort, as long as you're of the mind that you don't need the admiration of other people. You don't need to impress other people, and that other people's opinions, quite frankly, are their opinions and are none of my business. If you want to think that I am a bitter person, then fine, think I'm a bitter person. It's entirely your prerogative. If you want to think I am unattractive, that's your prerogative too. What you consider attractive is your right, it's your decision. Nobody is going to argue with you if you find something unattractive or unappealing. That's your right. That's not even for me to say that you're wrong and that I am, absolutely fucking gorgeous, because I don't think that myself. But there again, if you get into the mind of, okay, I don't think I'm pretty either, it's just another way of saying that if I was so inclined to like females in that way, then basically I'm not my type. I mean, I'm not a huge bearded hairy bloke with lots of tattoos. I'm just a larger than average woman in terms of height and things. Bit hairy, but there again, I've gone through the menopause. I am extremely tattooed though, so there's that. But no, I'm not my type. I don't consider myself a catch. I don't think I'm particularly, Anyway, as I've said before, I'm way past that age where any attempt at being pretty or even wanting to be pretty has long passed, and now I am diligently working towards the option of either aging disgracefully or metamorphosizing into some kind of mythical being who is somewhat intimidating and like some sort of oracle or some swamp hag or something of that nature. I can't decide which direction to go in. Some sort of mythical being that people don't know what to think of is kind of the aim. Something witchy. Some of you will know what I mean anyway. Whatever. I wish I realised I was pretty when I was pretty in my early 20s. I wish I knew, sort of. I also wish that I knew I was slim when I was slim, instead of thinking I was fat when I clearly wasn't. But that's in the past, and I can't travel in time. I would say what I'm trying to say is, but actually I have very little clue as what I'm trying to say. I am literally waffling in absence of actually sitting down and concentrating on the content that the various girls have put forth. I don't understand what they're trying to achieve on basic viewing, because everything is so fucking ludicrous. It's like watching, when birds get into your house or flies get into your house through a very, very open window and then spend the next couple of hours neglecting to find the same big open window to get out of. This is what the girls are doing. They've gotten themselves into a situation, and although the exit is very, very clear and obvious, the way they got into this is like has a neon light above it saying exit, exit, exit. They cannot find it, and they're bouncing off walls and things. This is what the girls are doing. They've both gotten themselves into an absolute pickle and cannot or will not, because of pride, head towards the obvious, which is, unfortunately for them, and it's going to stick in their throats like a wishbone, is being honest. I know, interesting concept. Give it a think. At least give it a think. You might find, it has some, good points about it. Narcissists. You knew I was going to come up with this word eventually. Cannot admit they were wrong. They cannot let go. They cannot reveal their faults. They cannot say sorry. They cannot admit defeat. They cannot say I was wrong or I fucked up. They just keep on doing whatever they think they need to do to keep up the facade and the pretense, and it just gets more and more and more ludicrous as they get more and more and more desperate to try and keep up this facade. And if the facade is not facading, they will try to divert your attention away from the issue. Amber has decided that to distract the whole entire world from all the things that Beck is saying, she's going to bring up FBI Frank again, which she knows, we know, is absolute bollocks. But by continuing the narrative, she thinks we're all going to go, oh, there's Beck over there, but FBI Frank over there and her denial of it, let's focus over here. No, we're not that stupid. And Beck, revealing all your dirty laundry, both literally and metaphorically, let's say, in some way should be considered an advantage, Amber, because at least knowing that you can't wipe your own arse isn't nearly as bad as all of us people focusing on the thing that you like teenage girls. Specifically 15 to 19-year-old teenage girls. And even if we said you're only, 16 to 19, while not technically illegal, is very morally corrupt. So you should be grateful for Beck, because at least if we're talking about Beck and Destiny and Casey, we're not concentrating on the fact that technically you're a PDF. Why we cannot just say the words I haven't quite grasped. But the fact I say PDF means you know exactly the word I'm trying to say, which means it defeats the purpose. Anyway, so Amber, embrace the yuck that Beck is bringing forth, because at least it's distracting us from the even bigger issue that you are, as English people would say, are a bit of a nonce. And Foodie, playing ignorant must be very hard for you to do, because you pride yourself on being smarter than almost everybody else in girl world, don't you? And so to try and deny things have happened through not being as smart, or to deny things have happened because suddenly you developed, or suddenly you've discovered that you are somewhat neurodivergent, for which I'm going to say, fuck off. You are not neurodivergent. You have a multitude of personality disorders and some issues with other mental illnesses, let's say. In my opinion, as somebody who has a certain level of academic experience with such matters and things, as well as a personal interest, let's call it a hobby, me and my bloody hobbies. I know, foodie, I know. I'm like the anti-foodie. You have no hobbies, and I have literally clung on to almost every hobby there is in existence. I mean, if it's a craft, I've at least tried it. I can guarantee that I've at least tried it. Although I'd love to be able to learn how to do a whip. I think it would be very handy in an apocalypse. And a catapult, I think that would be very handy in an apocalypse. And throwing knives too. So yeah. I got distracted. For some reason, when I said throwing knives, I thought of Jason Momoa throwing axes. And now thinking about whips, I'm thinking about Pedro Pascal. Yeah, okay. Easily distracted by. Anyway. This whole entire monologue that I've just spewed forth is basically my way of saying, don't put yourself in a group with a group of people you do not belong with, and do not use their particular characteristics as an excuse for you being a foul person. And the solution to both you and Amber's problems is to just tell the truth. 7 months. I've been making videos for 7 months. And I think it's very obvious to most of you that I finally have become so comfortable doing this that I am no longer hiding my neurodivergencies, let's say. This is how I normally talk. This is me just being me and not trying to fit in or appear, you know, as others, let's say. Now I want you to imagine this multiplied by 50, and I'm pretty sure that's what I'm like when I'm drunk. To anybody who's ever sat with me after I've had a few drinks, I thank thee for your service. You are stronger people than I. I can't even begin to imagine. Anyway, I have 2 custom orders to fulfill this week, and I think you guys will like what I come up with. I am absolutely tickled pink by one of them. It's going to be monumental, let's say.